If you guys didn't know, YouTube has this rule that you can't swear in the first 10 seconds or so in a video. That will get you some ad restrictions. And why is this information relevant? Because I'm stalling right now so I can do my actual intro. Is it time yet? It's probably alright.
I'm gonna come. Oh.
Alright, I could probably say it now. What the fuck did I just watch? You know, I've kinda been on a hot streak recently with watching good shows. Fragrant Flower, Hero Aka, Spy Family, Cyberpunk, which I started the game too the other day, by the way. I've just been enjoying a lot of shows. Maybe I'm even enjoying them a little too much because I don't know if I'm insanely masochistic or what, but I've been craving some dog shit shows. I want to cringe at a show the whole way through about how bad it is in every aspect. And recently, I did. I found myself a show that certainly 100% without a doubt sucks fuck. And boy do I regret it, but boy am I gonna do this again in a couple weeks. And yeah, I just wanted to talk a little about the show. So today, I'm gonna be talking about one of 2025's fall season's most horrible shows, Little Miss Vampire Can't Suck Right. I bet many of you who just heard the title of the show thought, what the hell? And rightfully so, because I thought the same. But instead of straying away from things that make you say what the hell, at just hearing the name, my freak ass went towards it head first. And you know what? Let's analyze that title for a second to see what the show is really about. Little Miss, so she's small, she's a vampire, and she can't suck right. That's all this show is about. Luna the vampire is a vampire, but she sucks at sucking blood, which if you think about it, it probably is kind of hard. Funny thing, I always thought that vampire teeth have holes in them to suck up blood or something, but if that's not the case and it's only to puncture the skin, it must actually be difficult to do. But because she sucks so badly at sucking blood, she's always kinda hungry, and our main character, Otori, lets her suck his blood. And while we're on the topic, let's explore Otori a little more. And I mean really a little more, because exploring him would be the equivalent of exploring the average classroom of the lead enjoyer's brain. Not much substance. In all 8 of its episodes so far, he gets no development, no characterization, and not even really a reason to care for Luna. It's not like they're friends, it doesn't really seem like he likes her romantically, there really just isn't any reason. And you know, overall, this might be the blandest protagonist I've ever seen. Over the nearly 2 decades I've been watching anime, I don't remember seeing a single protagonist more bland than Otori. Genuinely, these fuckers have more character than him, and I'm pretty sure they're unnamed. They didn't even bother giving him proper facial features. Most characters, harem, romance, isekai, what have you, have some sort of character. They have some traits. Normally, the traits are the same. Nerdy, likes video games, nervous, or bad with women, but Otori doesn't even have that. I can't even say that he's nothing you haven't seen before because I genuinely have not seen anything like him before. He's not unlikable, he's somewhat nice, but only slightly. He isn't really nervous, he isn't terrible with people, he isn't great with them. I don't know what else to write about him. He's not a nerd, he's not an asshole, he's not anything. He's just the max level prestige bland bitch protagonist. He is the ultimate wish fulfillment vessel. And usually with bland bitch male protags, there's some good female ones, but the heroine in this story is only slightly better. She turns small and cute and is bad at sucking blood, likes snacks, is a gremlin, and is somewhat pleasant sometimes. But you know, to be fair to her, she does at least actually have a character, but her character is truly just nothing we haven't seen before. Think Umaru-chan or Noko-tan even, but super diluted. And speaking of Noko-tan, I think that's one route this show could have gone to improve itself. If they just embraced the absurdity and went all the way with everything instead of trying to be cute about it, it could have actually been a good show. And yeah, this show wants to be a cute moe-style romance, kinda, but it does none of that well. It's a confused show. I don't think the people who made it know what they wanted to make. It's kind of a romance, but the romance genuinely goes nowhere and isn't even thoroughly expressed. It tries to be a cutesy story but isn't cute at all. It tries to be a comedy but isn't funny. It tries to have a compelling world where monsters live among humans and create issues in comedy, but we rarely see any monsters other than the vampire. It tries to be sexual but isn't sexy at all. It really just needed to pick one and go all the way with it. You know what? I'll say it. I think it would have been better to just make it a straight up porn or make a giga ecchi out of it, because at least then it has a demographic. As of now, it really doesn't suit anyone. And yeah, speaking of ecchis, I think that would have also been a fine route to go because it really isn't cute. Oh, but she's small. Yeah, but she's a fucking high schooler, and to be cute, you need to have some charm, some character, a joke or two even, but this show does none of that, and vampires also are sexual in nature. The concept of vampires in literature is always sexual, or at least they symbolize some sexual thing. There's this book called How to Read Literature Like a Professor by Thomas C. Foster. It talks about literature and what different aspects of a book can mean. I actually use a lot of what it talks about in a lot of my videos, and it's a really good book. I normally dislike these types of books, especially if it's for school, but this one was actually good. You can straight up just find the PDF online, so go check it out. The language used and the ways the author explains things was always engaging and fun. But anyways, in the book, there's a chapter called Nice to Eat You, Acts of Vampires, and another one called It's All About Sex. In the chapter about sex, Foster explains that since authors are humans too, and it's not as if sex and innuendos were invented recently, many authors insert, see, I just did it there, things that represent sex. And speaking of this, they sometimes also just straight up tell dick jokes. I was reading Hamlet by Shakespeare recently, and there were a few dick jokes in there. But anyways, the author also explains that there are many abstract representations of sex throughout literature, saying things like, sex doesn't have to look like sex. Other objects and activities can stand in for sexual organs and sex acts, which is good since those organs and acts can only be arranged in so many ways and are not inevitably decorous. He then goes on to explain multiple instances of this throughout literature and film, so now we know that sex in media doesn't always have to look like explicit ass fucking. I know, we are very elegant on this channel. The vampire chapter is about vampires and what they often represent. Foster says that it is often sex. Let's look at what they do real quick. Let's look at the most iconic one, Dracula, which I'm coincidentally reading right now. Dracula, in almost all of his depictions, has this weird charm to him, this weird, almost hypnotic elegance. Sometimes he's downright sexy, I'll say it, and so will Foster, as he said exactly that in this chapter. Dracula preys on young, unmarried women, and back then, people didn't like to marry non-virgins, so they were also usually virgins. When he feasts on them, he gets younger, more vital, more virile even. And then, he leaves his mark on them, turns them into an impure vampire as well, stripping them of their innocence. And they also become useless in the eyes of other men as they weren't virgins anymore. Even the act of sucking blood has some sexual tension in a way. We actually see a lot of these aspects in many other pieces of media, even anime sometimes. Nazuna and other vampires from Call of the Night, hot as hell. They become canonically, in universe, hotter when they turn into vampires. If you watch the show, there are a ton of innuendos, and they treat vampirism in this manner. It's a really good work and one of my favorites of all time, so you should watch it too. There was actually a new season recently, and the openings and endings, god damn, CreepyNuts does it again. Shiki, one of the big plots is that the pink-haired girl really likes one of the characters and stalks him as a vampire, seemingly still liking him and wanting to do it with him. And by that, I mean suck his blood and turn him. Hellsing. I actually haven't seen the show. I know I should, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. But one thing I know about the show is that there's some master-slave dynamic going on, which obviously will have some sexual tension. I haven't confirmed this yet, and I won't for the sake of my browser history, but I just know there is a shit ton of hentai between the master and the slave. Now, I know, I've rambled on for a bit, but this is kinda important to the show we're talking about today, because as I mentioned earlier, this show tries not to have any sexual tension, instead, trying to put a cute spin on it, physically shrinking the girl into the size of a child, and yes, she actually shrinks in-universe as was shown in episode 8 with the tube. But vampires, the act of sucking, the concept as a whole is sexual. So trying to make it a child or like cute is just kinda icky and me no likey. Of course, you can say that they veered away from this direction, but I think there's a limit to how much you can stray away from this. This is like if you take a zombie show and try to make it not as scary by making it more wholesome or more slice of lifey, which they've done a couple of times. Think Zom 100 or School Live. Even though they are less scary than something like Walking Dead or Train to Busan, it is still scary. The world is still ruined and people they love have died. It can only be unscary to a certain point, just how vampires can only be unsexied to a certain degree. So there is still definitely a hint of that in the story, especially with Ishikawa sometimes putting on the cool, nonchalant femme fatale persona. So yeah, the concept as a whole is just kinda weird, and I even think that it's not a good premise. It's too specific to be able to have much flexibility. A vampire who is bad at sucking blood sucks blood from one specific guy to practice, and she also turns super small and childlike whenever she does it. There just isn't really much you can do with that, especially since there really isn't a plot. There is only one joke they can make with that plot. Haha, she is child and bad at sucking blood. Get it? And because of that, there isn't a single funny joke that has to do with the premise. But there are exactly 2 funny jokes within the whole series that don't have to do with the premise. And one of them is a super small one where a girl is looking for a club to join and stumbles upon the dated slang club. And just look at this.
Now でヤングの新入生入ってくれるかな。ドーンと構えておけば大丈夫い。私今日ケツカッチンだからお先に。なんて。
The other one may not even be an intentional joke. Just look for yourself. Subscribe for 6-7. But I think by far the biggest problem with the show is that it tries to be deep at all. There are a couple of times where they try to be deep and stuff, but it doesn't work because the premise is shit and also because the characters have no character. If this show was purely for nonsense fun or just a slice of life with zero deepness to it, I wouldn't critique it as harshly. What I personally define as quality is the author's ability to achieve what they sought to. If the author wanted a nonsense fun brain-dead show like Shikanoko and did just that, that show is good. If the author wanted a super deep intellectual mystery-esque show but has any mistakes in the deductions or manipulations like in Classroom of the Elite, then they fail and the show is bad. When a show tries to go for a kind, non-asshole, non-manipulative character, but shits out Kaori or Taiga, they fail. But also at the same time, if they wanted to go for an asshole character and create someone like Kinta Sakata, they can actually play on that and use it to its fullest effect, which is why Kinta is actually funny. So by trying to be deep at all, they are no longer classified as brain-dead fun with not much depth. They can no longer use that excuse. So now what we have is an author that tries to be deep, but fails miserably. That is the main issue. This is why self-awareness and knowing what you want is key. One more thing that kinda has to do with this show is the worst case of OMG, she is so perfect and everyone lives their lives for her. Everyone, ever, no matter where she goes or what she is doing, is always on her tip saying, look at her, she's so pretty, or I love you so much, you're so cute. Like, everyone does this, which is ironic as no one does this in real life. And you know, I don't like this trope, but still, once or twice, sure, it's annoying, but not that big of a deal. But this show does it always. They weren't going for an absurd amount of this, or was trying to make it seem stupid, but did anyways, which is why I absolutely hate it. If they just made a joke out of it, like, I don't know, she was walking down the streets and this rando starts saying all that bullshit to her and she says, who the fuck are you? I feel like that would be funny, but I don't know. The point is that they should have known that it was stupid and either not done it or went with the stupid. But that's why it's a bad show, but not exactly why I dislike it. The reason I dislike it so much is because of the utter lack of effort. you can usually tell how much effort someone has put into something. Sometimes, even if it's something bad, you can tell the author has put a lot of effort into it. Like Rent a Girlfriend. It's bad, but I can sense that the author and his gooner brain has put in a decent amount of effort into it. But unfortunately, his 100% effort work is like a normal writer's 2% work. But for Little Miss Vampire, there's not really an attempt at world building, there's not an attempt at character writing, there's not an attempt at character design, there's not an attempt at comedy or romance. It almost just seems like the writer put out his outline as his final work. To be fair to the author, every creator of anything has products they care more about than others. This is just not one of them. I actually don't think the author is bad at writing, as I do see some potential and some actually funny and creative jokes and interesting ideas. I mean, who doesn't love monster slice of life? So I know they can do it if they tried, but they just don't care enough for this to do so. And what we have, I can only intuitively explain it in one way. You know, My Dress Up Darling? Awesome show, but you know when Marin does cosplay for a character and in universe it's an actual work, so they explain the plot and show it sometimes and what happens in it? It just seems like you took one of those, which are all explained in like 5 minutes, but you stretched it out to 12 episodes, or like 8 or 9 so far, I guess. And actually, in My Dress Up Darling, there's a slice of life series about a succubus that seems like a child and does gremlin shit like eat a bunch of snacks. This show seems just like that. And if you watch this whole video so far, leave it at that. Don't go watch the show as well. You just don't need to. You will not be missing anything. You know pretty much everything that happens. You know pretty much all of the jokes. And I know many of you guys didn't even know about this and weren't going to watch it anyways, but I like torturing myself for some reason. So yeah, subscribe to make the pain less, I guess. Anyways, there you have it. My name is NoahBoahCoah, and I saw a lone star in the night sky the other day, and it was really fucking ugly, and it pissed me off just looking at it. And thank you for watching.